These are just a few of the books I use when doing research. In 1776, the United States formally declared its independence. That is, independence from Great Britain, announcing to the world that we were independent and open for business. But was America really independent? Was this a Christian nation founded on Christian principles? Were the so-called founding fathers Christian? How many of them were Freemasons? In this video, we take a look at the founding of the United States and try and find its real purpose. As always, this video doesn't plan on being too extensive or too deep, only because I'm basically targeting the people who are novice or maybe hearing this information for the first time. I'm not a teacher or some great researcher. I'm just someone like you. I'm fed up with the bull. The founding fathers were John Hancock, James Madison, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, Patrick Henry, Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Paine, Samuel Adams, Richard Henry Lee, James Monroe, John Marshall, and George Mason. Through historic research, we find their beliefs mostly ambiguous, with Alexander Hamilton being the only one who was a professed Christian. The others held a mixture that would be best described as Gnosticism. Thomas Jefferson was very outspoken in his disdain for religion. And though I agree that religion is a disease, this is where our concurrence ends, as I have no relations to the Gnostics nor Gnosticism. We also understand that quite a few founding fathers were Freemasons, that being George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, John Hancock, and George Mason. Most people suggest Thomas Jefferson, though I have yet to see any concrete evidence of this. The point is, America was not founded on Christian principles, so therefore cannot be a Christian nation. Did America really win the Revolutionary War? While there are books and many videos on YouTube claiming Great Britain actually won, I'll save my judgment until I receive more accurate information. But I do know the United States not being able to use the titles of king or queen was due in part to the treaty they signed with Great Britain. And usually, the winner makes the demands in a war treaty. But is America really independent? Does she stand on her own? Let's take a look at Washington, D.C. to get a better idea of who America really is. Let's start with the Washington Monument, only because it sits out like a sore thumb, literally. Built by Robert Mills between 1848 and 1884, it stands a whopping 555 feet, which equates to 6,665 inches, or 666. Stolen from ancient Egyptian design, the monument actually represents a phallic symbol. It is the male member of Osiris, a god belonging to ancient Egypt. It has the Masonic 33-degree arc or arch and aligns itself with the belt of Orion, who is associated with the aforementioned Egyptian god Osiris. Is this a mistake or a coincidence? Let's continue. In the rotunda of the Capitol building, there's a very interesting motif painted on the ceiling. Painted in 1865 by Constantino Brumidi, born and trained in Rome with close ties to the Vatican. Constantino Brumidi titled this the apotheosis of Washington, or in layman's terms, George Washington in his highest form. The mural actually depicts George Washington rising to the heavens in glory as a god, while flanked by female figures representing liberty and victory, i.e., Roman goddesses. There's also a statue on the Capitol with George Washington posing as the Baphomet. You have to understand, this is all tied into Gnosticism. To understand what I'm talking about is to understand the Gnostic system. The Gnostic Gospels are an alternative history of the Hebrew, then Christian, belief system. This Gnostic system was a corruption wherein they say this world we live in was created not by the Most High, but by a lesser god or demiurge known as the monad or EgyptDaughter. Most scholars say it was a form of Iranian and Mesopotamian syncretism, that is, the amalgamation of European, Hamitic, and Shemitic religious systems. In short, a pagan, Persian, Babylonian mystery system. Now, as we peruse Washington, D.C., and the origins of its symbolisms, be aware that many of these gods and goddesses are merely ancient Egyptian and Babylonian figures renamed. For example, the Virgin Mary is Isis, she's Semiramis, she's Athena, Ishtar, Diana, and Venus, and many more. Washington, D.C. itself sits in between Maryland and Virginia, or the Virgin Mary. You can't make this stuff up. Then there's the Pentagon. sure I don't need to elaborate on this. There's the goddess Isis, who sits above the Capitol building as a bronzed image with a military helmet. The streets form both the Goat of Mendes, which is the Baphomet, and the satanic owl of Moloch, a Phoenician god mentioned in the book of Leviticus. Washington, D.C. has always been one of the stars in the flag of the 3 city-states of the world. London City, London is the financial leg. Vatican City is the religious leg. And Washington, D.C. is the military. One of the more hidden symbols in D.C. is called the Vesica Pisces, which represents the female sexual organ. So you have the male member of Osiris, that is the Washington Monument, that sits on the female member of Isis, or the Vesica Pisces. And remember, Washington, D.C. itself sits between the legs of the Virgin Mary. This is the birth of a nation, a satanic, pagan nation, the daughter of Babylon. And that owl, the owl of Moloch we were talking about earlier, well, we find him at the Bohemian Grove, in the street design at the Pentagon, and hidden in the flower design on your dollar bill. Ask yourself, why would an owl be on the dollar bill? In fact, why would any of these images be on the dollar bill? Once you start paying attention to the things that are hidden in plain sight, once you start understanding what government really means, maybe you will start to investigate this satanic system. We've been under Masonic Jesuit control since our inception. Slavery was put in place by the Vatican through a papal bull, which is the Pope's highest decree. This wasn't a fly-by-night ordeal. This was plotted and planned all the way down to the lines of demarcation. That is, splitting up the lands between Portugal and Spain. This papal bull, or Dum Diversus, started the transatlantic slave trade. And the people who were enslaved were a particular people. The United States of America is nothing but a new Egypt, and the enslavement of the Hebrew people all over again. Just as it is said in Deuteronomy 28 and 68, where it was said we'd go into slavery again. We did. And for those of you who don't know, the Hebrew name for Egypt is Mizraim, which means siege or distress. Oh, and guess what NASA means for all you science buffs in Hebrew? Deceiver. I keep stressing this because we've been lied to about everything. Until we learn to discern and to pay attention, we'll continue to suffer under the hand of injustice and self-loathing. We have babies, and we keep poisoning them with the enemy's doctrines, morals, and science. Wake up, Judah. Wake up, Benjamin. Wake up, Levites, and pray to the Most High. Ask for forgiveness and put down these pagan practices. You still have time. I don't know how much, but you have today. Peace.